What's going on, YouTube Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to do with you guys. This is the Bestech Knives Horus. This is a very interesting knife. You guys know that the other Bestech knives that I've taken a look at, which is actually quite a few now, I really like Bestech. Bestech is a Chinese manufacturer that they have a budget line and then they have a more premium line, and I just kind of sync up with them. You know, I really like their design philosophy that they apply to most of their knives, and I enjoy them aesthetically, and I don't know, I've got a lot of good things to say about this knife, but let's go ahead and jump into the review before I ruin anything. Full disclosure, this knife was sent to me by the Passaran Group, which means indirectly by Bestech themselves. So I appreciate the opportunity. I will do my best to not let that affect my review. I do not get to keep this knife, though, so it should be pretty easy. Overall length of the Horus coming in at, it's over 8 1/4. It's like 8.3 inches. From tip to scale, you're looking at a 3.75 inch blade, and the actual cutting edge is... cutting edge is about 3 1/4. There's a pretty generous finger choil there. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons here up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 coming in at 8.6 inches overall, so you can see they're not quite the same length as the Rat 1. Let's move the Horus down here just a little bit. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. We are at an angle here, but I can tell you these two are almost exactly the same length. So yeah, the Horus is about 8.3 inches overall, about the same length as the PM2. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue is coming in at 8 inches overall, so a little bit longer than the Ritter Hogue. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. The Spyderco Para 3 is coming in at 7 1/4 inches overall. Let me give you guys an example of the action here. This is a full titanium frame lock running on bearings. It is very, very smooth. This feels like every Bestech that I've handled, and I've been very impressed with the Eskra and the Ornetta and the Lion. And was there another one in there? I know that there's more than that, but here's what I really like. Consistency. Bestech has been consistent. I've actually purchased 2 Lions, and then all of these other higher end stuff. I mean, their budget line, you know, yeah, they're using G10 and D2, but they feel good. Their expensive line, they're using titanium, and they're using S35N and M390, and they're using bearings, and they feel good. It feels like what I expect. You know, it's kind of got that zero tolerance kind of feel where everything is very precision and you're getting the same thing over and over and over again. It's got that. Less the, you know, I know the drama with ZT. What I'm saying, I'm using them as an example because it's what I generally expect from ZT is if I order 5 zero tolerance 0562s, they all feel exactly the same. That's the feeling that I'm getting with Bestech, and I really, really appreciate that. This knife is it just needs a little bit of a wiggle, but it's glassy smooth. It feels good, and you know, if it's anything like zero tolerance, it's going to break in even smoother. The action is very snappy. You have a flipper tab that is designed more as a light switcher, but you can do a little bit of a push button if you want as well. Either way, the detent is a medium heavy detent that is going to fire and click into place. It's very satisfying. You have that nice clicky detent, and you get the click, 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 you know, the break of the detent, the passing over. That did it on purpose. The passing over the detent ball and then the click into place. You get a triple click when you fire it out, and it's very satisfying. I like that a lot. Let's go ahead and weigh this knife. Overall weight of the Bestech Horus, which, by the way, is full titanium. And if you look in there, you can see there is a little bit of milling that has been done. It's not substantial, but there definitely is... there are definitely a couple of pockets that are milled on this slab right here. The overall weight, or the end results of that, is that this knife weighs about 5.5 ounces. Let me keep you, let me put this into perspective. This knife is a little bit longer than an XM18. I have an XM18 upstairs that's full titanium. It comes in at 6 1/4. So this is bringing this knife down to about what the XM18 weighs with the milled out titanium scales, or about a quarter ounce above what the XM18 weighs with just a G10 scale on it. So they did a pretty good job. Definitely. It's not going to be the lightest knife in the world, so those of you who like to carry knives in the 2, 3, 4 ounce mark, this is going to be pretty big and pretty heavy. like I said, these knives are made in China. There are a lot of variants of this knife available. And of course, the first thing I did was check. These wouldn't be my colors, but some of you guys would really like this. This sort of two-tone kind of black tumbled blade with a satin flat, and then there's more of that black wash in the fuller there. Excuse me. Still getting over a cold. And then the frame is actually a tumbled bronze, or like a dark bronze, but they have a satin finished with blue. They have all tumbled. They've got ones with like a little carbon fiber inlays, and they make a left-handed version of this. Now, when I checked on Blade HQ, the left-handed ones were sold out, but that's really cool. They did a left-handed one. I remember when I reviewed the Bestech malware, that was one of the other ones I did, the malware. I was also shocked to see that they had a left-handed frame lock. Not just the pocket clip on the left-hand side, but an actual left-handed frame lock. So Bestech's doing that. That's really cool because we don't get to see that a lot in this world. I expect after, Bestech is successful with it, we'll start seeing it more and more and more. But that's really, really cool that they do that. So anyways, you have a lot of choices as far as the aesthetics of this blade go. Let's take a look at the anatomy of the knife. What we have here is a sort of a clip point style blade. In this case, that's had, like I said, been black washed or acid tumbled, whatever you want to call that. And then some nice satin flats. You can see the lines there. Generally the polishing lines or whatever you want to call that. We have a blade stock thickness that's probably about 145 thousandths. Yeah, it looks to be about the same as the PM2, which is, I'm starting to kind of get to the point where I think that's like the perfect starting thickness for blades that I like, the blade profiles I like and the size of blades that I like. Obviously, 145 thousandths is not the end-all be-all, but for me, it kind of, tends to be a sweet spot. You have a little bit of a fuller here. I think it's mostly just an aesthetic thing. I tried to do a reverse flick with it, and I can almost get it. You can kind of use it as a pinch opener, but I think it was just designed as an aesthetic feature. It doesn't really aid you in deployment. It's really going to be primarily that flipper tab that deploys the blade. We do have a pretty substantial finger choil that you can definitely get your finger in and lock into. There's not really a safety right here, so you do risk running your finger up on the blade just a little bit. No different than an XM18, but not quite, the choils that we see on like the Para 3, where you've got the jimping there and then you've got that nub that kind of keeps you back. That's okay though, not that big of a deal. What it means is that you have a setup that makes it easier for sharpening. This serves as a gigantic sharpening choil as well, so it's kind of a trade-off. There is nothing to get in the cutting path on this. You have, your flat that runs out about 70% the length of the blade, and then it drops right down to the cutting edge. Gets fairly thin. It's not a laser beam, but it's thinner than you would expect for a blade of this. This is like a heavy-duty outdoor folding knife. It gets thinner than you would expect on a blade like this. Absolutely going to be capable at, any everyday cutting tasks as well as some harder use tasks as well. It's ground the right way. But anyways, there's nothing in the cutting path. You're going to get a little bit of gunk inside that fuller, but that's not that big of a deal. It's going to be really easy to wipe out. Also, they've gotten rid of any potential sharpness here by rounding these edges off nicely. I always appreciate that. It always feels cheap when these edges up here are sharp, and that's not the case with this knife. It's really, really nice. You have some meaningful jimping back here. Just a little tiny space, but you do actually have some traction there, some meaningful traction, so I appreciate that. Moving down to the scales, we have full titanium scales that are probably... yeah, they're like the same thickness as the blade. Now, this knife does a good job of not feeling too chunky, but it definitely does feel substantial in a good way. I like how this feels. It feels like a full-size knife. I really like that. The edges are nicely rounded off, so it's very, very comfortable. You have this line here, and initially I was like, what are these lines? So on the models that offer the carbon fiber inlays, down here, there's an inlay. Up here, there's no inlay. And honestly, I feel like for people who enjoy inlays, I don't, so I don't really care. Or I don't enjoy them as much as I do just a full titanium scale or texturing on titanium. But for people who like inlays, what was odd to me is that the knives that offer the inlay was just in this triangle here. They didn't do it around here, and I would imagine it's because it takes an extra cut to go around the pivot and accommodate for the pivot collar. So maybe that's why they didn't do it. I don't know. I feel like you missed an opportunity there. A lot of people would like the inlays on both, and it just would give it that more premium feel. I don't know if those models cost more. I didn't look closely enough, but in any case, you can get a version of it with an inlay down here. It's not that big of a deal that it's not up top. It's just something to point out. Like I said, they've got the tumbled bronze. They've got the regular tumbled. They've got the more satin finished titanium with blue. A bunch of different choices there. I like how the handle looks. but I'm a super boring person. I would actually prefer that the lines weren't there and that there was some sort of texturing on this. That's always what I would prefer. But you know, that's just me like wanting something, like wanting the same thing over and over and over and over again. So I'm kind of boring there. Some people are going to prefer these aesthetic lines. Moving down to the handle here, we do have, I think, unfortunately, little tiny screws. Are they the same size? Yeah, they're the little tiny size. I don't like that. Let's use bigger screws. I don't like these at all. I don't know why. I mean, if they just cost like way less money, they couldn't cost that much less than just one size up. You know, it's like, are these, am I getting this wrong? Are these T10 or is it the other way? Are they like T4? I don't know. I don't know my torch sizes. I don't like this tiny size. I want, these are the size that it's always on the Benchmade knives. I don't like that. I think we should come one step up, like just universally. We have an awesome flush semi-gear pattern backspacer with, you know, a few marks here and then it's flat and then a few marks here and it kind of extends around to the back. I love this backspacer. Really, really like that. I think it would be cool if we had a little bit more contrast, like if the backspacer was the same color as the pivot collar. We didn't talk about that. There's a slightly lighter anodized pivot collar around actually a really neat pivot there. It's kind of, it reminds me of a switch on a switchblade, how it's textured on both sides. Really nice, just an additional touch that almost went unnoticed just now, but it's nice that they did that. Anyways, I would prefer that the backspacer was kind of anodized the same color as that, or in the case of the satin finished and blue one, you would have more contrast, you know, kind of at equal parts around the knife. Some people might actually prefer that it's uniform back here with the frame. That's just my thoughts. It's just that's a subjective thing. Moving around to the other side, you have a pocket clip that is kind of long and skinny, and I don't generally like that, but it does go along with the theme of the knife. I would always prefer a clip that's just a little bit wider and a little bit less pokey at the bottom, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. It definitely does its job. Plenty of retention. It's going to hold the knife about here, so there's not much sticking out. You do have a generous lanyard hole back here that's going to be pretty easy to slip some 550 through. No issue there. We do, of course, have a steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop. You can see here we're locking up at, let me go ahead and fire it. I think we're locking up at something like 40%. Very solid up, down, left, and right. We also have perfect centering. It's the same thing with every single Bestech knife. They're all like that. It's awesome. So Bestech is capable of doing contouring. This is a more blocky design, and that's, I think, on purpose. It just kind of goes along with the knife. Ergonomically, the knife is very easy to hang on to. It's really comfortable. All four of my fingers lock in behind this little raised spot back here. I suppose you could use that to do some very light chopping, but as far as a standard grip and position for your hand, it's great. The choked up position is also great. Kind of wonder why the jimping is so far back here, because where my thumb naturally wants to go is more up here. You probably could have doubled the length of that jimping and been just fine. It doesn't have a sharp landing zone. There's a nice soft landing zone right back there, so this is a very fidgety knife. There's also no double clutch, meaning the blade is plenty past the detent ball once it drops to here, and you can do the simple shake shut. It's really fun to play with, really nice. Bestech does a really good job at that. Anyways, Bestech is capable of doing contouring like on their, I think it was the Eskra that I really liked. They had some amazing milling lines, and I'm just, this is an awesome design. I'll go ahead and say it at 13-minute mark. This knife, CPM S35VN, bearings and titanium, an awesome size, an awesome weight, awesome ergonomic design, awesome feel and look, and multiple choices in left and right-handed carry. By the way, as far as your pocket clip position goes on this, it's going to be a tip up only, both for right and left-handed models. But yeah, this is absolutely a recommendable knife. I mean, there are little tiny nitpicks I have with it, but this is a great knife. And this knife can be purchased, this is the best part, this knife can be purchased for 184 bucks. 184 bucks, yep, I'm good with that. I'm definitely good with that. Some people are going to be like, why is this not M390? Honestly, I don't think that it matters on this model. You know, I've contradicted myself kind of and said on certain models I want M390, on other knives I don't. 184 bucks for that and this level of fit and finish and just consistency. Oh yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I love the blade shape. I love the grind. I love the feel of it. It feels like a capable knife, you know, and it's you know, this is a good cutting tool. I really like it. Now, to extend on that, I kind of gush about Bestech. They're one of my favorite companies right now. I've got that my top 10 favorite companies and manufacturers video, and I listed Bestech as one of them. I can't remember what order they were in, but they're definitely one of my favorites. Now, they are capable of doing contoured, textured titanium scales. I've seen it a little bit in the Eskra. I've also seen their tumbled finish, and I really like it. And they do the different colors, and they've got the lock bar insert, and they've got the bearings, and they've got all these, everything that I want. I'm just waiting for you, Bestech, to just nail it with me. And Bestech will probably never watch this video, but honestly, as far as all of the different things that I list when I'm looking for that Excalibur knife, if you're not aware of what I'm talking about, you can watch my Quest for the Perfect Folding Knife series or my Knife Guy series where I constantly mention it. I've also listed the textured titanium version of the XM18 as the closest thing that exists to it. I'm looking for the same thing but contoured and kind of that same. Bestech is clearly capable of actually producing this knife. They've had many knives where I look at them and I'm like, geez, like they could actually do this, and they could make a knife, you know, exactly the way that I wanted it, and it'd probably be like a $250, $260 knife. And I'm just waiting for that to happen. I have never designed a knife, and I don't think that I would be good at it. I know what I want aesthetically and how it feels, but as far as getting everything to be put together and make it work the way that I want, that's a different story. That takes an actual designer and somebody who knows what they're doing to do that. But I feel like Bestech could do it. And if not, they've got a whole bunch of designs that are just awesome. I really, really like Bestech. They probably don't even know that I exist, and they are definitely not giving me anything for saying this, but every time I have a Bestech, I get excited. You know, you can see it in the unboxings. They just make good stuff. They make good quality knives. I like them. The only downside is if you ever need warranty work, it is a Chinese company. I don't know how that works. I'm sure they do have a warranty, but sending your knife to them and then getting it back, if it makes it, it's got a long journey. That's the only downside to purchasing a knife of this caliber from a company that manufactures them in China. Anyways, guys, that's going to be pretty much it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did at least find it entertaining, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe to my channel because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.